In the year 634, a man stood before the impregnable walls of Emesa with a mere 4,000 men, staring down an army of 40,000. The fate of Syria hung in the balance, and the man was Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, a trader turned warrior. The second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, had entrusted him with this crucial campaign, a testament to his wisdom and leadership. But the Byzantine Empire was not about to surrender its lands without a fight. Abd al-Rahman knew the stakes. Failure meant not just the loss of territory, but the potential collapse of the Muslim advance into Syria. The Byzantine army, fortified within the walls of Emesa, was a formidable force. Ibn al-Athir reports that they were well-equipped, well-trained, and confident in their superior numbers. Yet Abd al-Rahman saw an opportunity. The walls of Emesa were high, but they were not invincible. He recalled the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who had once said, "War is deceit." Sahih al-Bukhari. Abd al-Rahman decided to use this tactic. He ordered his men to feign retreat, drawing the Byzantine forces out of the city and into the open field. The plan was risky. A false move could lead to disaster. As Al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh, Abd al-Rahman paused, considering the potential outcomes. His scouts reported that the Byzantines were taking the bait, but they were also preparing for a fierce counterattack. The Muslims were outnumbered, and a single mistake could cost them everything. Abd al-Rahman made his decision. He ordered his archers to target the Byzantine commanders, disrupting their chain of command. Simultaneously, his frontline warriors engaged the enemy, using their superior mobility and tactics to wear them down. The battle raged for hours, but gradually the Byzantine forces began to falter. The tide turned when the Muslim archers struck a crucial blow, killing several Byzantine commanders. Panic spread through their ranks, and the once formidable army began to crumble. Abd al-Rahman, ever the strategist, pressed the advantage. His men fought with renewed vigor, and by nightfall, Emesa was in Muslim hands. But the victory was not without its costs. Many brave men had fallen, and the road ahead was still long and treacherous. As the Muslims secured their position, a messenger arrived with news that would change the course of the campaign. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius was mobilizing his forces for a massive counterattack. The city of Yarmouk, just a few days' march north, would be the battleground. The fate of Syria hung in the balance once more. In the year 634 AD, the city of Damascus stood as the last great bulwark of Byzantine power in Syria. The Muslim army, led by the legendary Amr ibn al-As, faced an impossible task. A city fortified by 40,000 Byzantine soldiers, ready to defend their empire to the death. Against them stood a mere 1,000 Muslim warriors, outnumbered 40 to 1. The fate of Syria hung in the balance. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had poured his resources into the defense of Damascus, knowing that if it fell, the rest of Syria would follow. The city's walls were impregnable, and its reserves were vast. Amr ibn al-As, however, was not a man to be deterred by such odds. He had been entrusted with this mission by the second caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him, and he knew the weight of that trust. The strategic challenge was immense. Damascus was not just a city, it was a symbol. Its fall would send a message to the entire Byzantine world. Amr ibn al-As understood that a direct assault would be suicide. Instead, he chose a tactic that would become legendary: patience and psychological warfare. He ordered his men to dig trenches and fortify their positions around the city, cutting off supplies and waiting. The Muslims had brought their own food and water, prepared for a long siege. According to al-Tabari in al-Tarikh, al-Rusul wa al-Muluk, Amr ibn al-As sent scouts to gather intelligence. He learned that the Byzantines were confident in their superiority and had no intention of engaging in open battle. They believed that the Muslims would either starve or retreat. Amr ibn al-As, however, had a different plan. He sent emissaries to the city's gates, offering peaceful terms. The Byzantines mocked them, throwing their messages back into the trenches. Days turned into weeks. The Muslims, though few, were unshaken in their faith. They prayed together, their voices echoing through the narrow streets and alleys. The Byzantines, on the other hand, grew restless. They had expected a swift victory, but the Muslims' resilience was unnerving. As Ibn Kathir noted in al-Bidaya wa al-Nihaya, the Byzantine commanders began to argue among themselves. Some wanted to launch a sortie, while others insisted on waiting. The crisis came when the Byzantine commanders finally decided to act. They opened the city gates and sent a force of 10,000 soldiers to break the siege. Amr ibn al-As, however, was ready. He had positioned his men in a way that would maximize their advantage. The Byzantines charged, but the Muslim archers rained arrows down upon them, forcing them to retreat back into the city. The gates slammed shut, and the siege continued. Amr ibn al-As knew that the key to victory lay in breaking the enemy's morale. He ordered his men to dig deeper trenches and to strengthen their defenses. The Byzantines, meanwhile, grew increasingly desperate. Their supplies were running low, and their confidence was waning. The Muslims, on the other hand, were steadfast. Their faith in Allah was their greatest weapon. The turning point came when a group of Damascene citizens, disillusioned with the Byzantine rule, secretly met with Amr ibn al-As. They promised to open the city gates from within. The plan was risky, but Amr ibn al-As saw an opportunity. He gathered his men and prepared for the final assault. Under the cover of darkness, the Damascene allies opened the gates, and the Muslim army poured into the city. The Byzantines were caught off guard. Their defenses crumbled as the Muslims fought their way through the streets. The battle was fierce, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Byzantines, outmaneuvered and outfought, were forced to retreat. By dawn, the city of Damascus was in Muslim hands. But the victory was not without its challenges. The Byzantines, though defeated, were not destroyed. They regrouped and prepared for a counterattack. Amr ibn al-As knew that the real test was yet to come. As he stood in the heart of Damascus, he received news that would change everything. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius was gathering a new army, ready to reclaim the city. With 30,000 Byzantine soldiers marching towards Palestine, the newly conquered provinces of the Muslim Ummah faced an existential threat. The year was 638 CE, and the fate of the Caliphate hung in the balance. The victory at Yarmouk had been decisive, but the Byzantine Empire was far from defeated. Emperor Heraclius had rallied his forces, determined to retake the lands lost to the Muslims. His target, Palestine, the very heart of the newly expanding Muslim dominion. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in his al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the Byzantine army, reinforced with fresh troops from Anatolia, numbered 30,000 men. Their objective was clear: recapture Jerusalem and push the Muslims back to the deserts of Arabia. In Medina, the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, faced a critical decision. The Muslim forces in Syria were stretched thin, and the loss of Palestine would be a devastating blow to the fledgling Caliphate. He needed a leader of unmatched strategic brilliance and unwavering faith to confront this new threat. His choice fell on Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, a seasoned commander whose tactical acumen had already proven invaluable in the conquest of Egypt. Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, arrived in Palestine with a force of 15,000 men, a fraction of the Byzantine numbers, but a force to be reckoned with. His first move was to secure Jerusalem, the holy city that had recently opened its gates to the Muslims. Ibn Kathir, in his al-Bidaya al-Nihaya, notes that Amr ibn al-As fortified the city and prepared for the imminent siege. The Byzantine army, under the command of General Theodore, approached from the north, aiming to cut off the Muslim supply lines and starve the city into submission. The strategic challenge was immense. The Byzantines outnumbered the Muslims 2-1, and their army was equipped with advanced siege engines. Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, knew that a direct confrontation would be suicidal. He needed to exploit the terrain and the element of surprise. As al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh al-Rusul al-Muluk, Amr ibn al-As chose to divide his forces, sending a smaller contingent to engage the Byzantines in skirmishes, while the main army prepared a surprise attack from the rear. The Byzantines, confident in their numerical superiority, fell into the trap. Their advance was slowed by the relentless Muslim hit-and-run tactics, and their supply lines became vulnerable. Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, led his main force through the rugged terrain of the Judean hills, avoiding the main Byzantine army and striking at their flank. The surprise attack caught the Byzantines off guard, disrupting their formations and sowing chaos in their ranks. According to al-Tabari, Amr ibn al-As paused. The scouts reported that the Byzantines were regrouping, and their siege engines were being moved into position. The Muslims were outnumbered and outgunned. Amr ibn al-As turned to Allah in prayer, seeking guidance and strength. His faith was unwavering, and his tactics were rooted in the principles of Islamic warfare: strategic brilliance, reliance on Allah, and the use of terrain to offset numerical disadvantages. The battle that followed was a testament to Amr ibn al-Az's genius. The Byzantines, despite their superior numbers, were unable to coordinate their forces effectively. The Muslim cavalry, led by Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, launched a devastating charge, breaking through the Byzantine lines and causing widespread panic. The Byzantines, demoralized and disorganized, began to retreat. The Muslims pursued them relentlessly, inflicting heavy casualties and capturing vast amounts of supplies and equipment. The victory at the Battle of Ajnadain, as Ibn al-Athir recorded in his history, was a turning point in the Byzantine-Muslim conflict. The Byzantines, who had hoped to retake Palestine and push the Muslims back, were forced to retreat to Anatolia. The Muslim Caliphate, under the leadership of Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, had secured its southern flank and ensured the safety of Jerusalem. But the letter that arrived that night would change everything. It was from the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, and it contained orders that would test the very foundations of the Muslim Ummah. In the year 636 CE, the Muslim army stood at the banks of the Euphrates, facing an empire that had ruled for centuries. With 12,000 men, they confronted the might of Persia, an empire with 30,000 seasoned warriors. The stage was set for a battle that would echo through history, al-Qādisiyyah. As al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh al-Rusul al-Muluk, the stakes were immense. The fate of Iraq, the heart of Persia's power, hung in the balance. Failure meant retreat, the collapse of the Muslim advance, and the preservation of the Persian Empire's dominance. Success, however, would open the gates to the east, bringing the message of Islam to new lands and peoples. The Persian Emperor Yazdijerd III had gathered his forces, led by the seasoned commander Rustam Farrukhzad. They were entrenched at al-Qādisiyyah, a strategic location near the Euphrates River. The terrain was flat, ideal for cavalry charges, and the Persians had fortified their position. The Muslim army, under the command of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, was outnumbered but not outmatched. Sa'd, a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, had been chosen by Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab for his wisdom and piety. He knew the importance of this battle and the need for a well-thought-out strategy. According to Ibn al-Athir in al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, Sa'd chose a formation that would maximize the effectiveness of his smaller force. He arranged his troops in a dense, defensive line, with archers and skirmishers in the front. The center was held by heavy infantry and the flanks by cavalry. This formation, known as the Turtle, was designed to withstand the initial Persian assault and then counterattack. Sa'd's reasoning was clear. The Persians would expect a frontal assault, but his strategy was to absorb their attack and then strike back with precision. The battle began with the Persians launching wave after wave of attacks. Their elephants, a terrifying sight, charged forward, but the Muslim archers rained down arrows, causing confusion and panic among the beasts. The Persian cavalry followed, clashing with the Muslim horsemen. The fighting was fierce, and the Muslims held firm. As Al-Tabari reports, the Persian commander Rustam was initially confident, believing that the sheer numbers of his army would overwhelm the Muslims. However, the tide of the battle began to turn. The Muslim forces, inspired by their faith and the leadership of Sa'd, fought with unwavering determination. The Persian lines started to waver, and Rustam ordered a retreat to regroup. But the Muslim cavalry, led by the brilliant commander Khalid ibn al-Walid, pursued the retreating Persians. In a decisive move, Khalid's forces cut off Rustam's retreat, surrounding him and his guards. Rustam, realizing the futility of his situation, chose to fight to the death, and he was killed. The death of Rustam was a turning point. The Persian army, leaderless and demoralized, began to collapse. The Muslims pressed their advantage, and the Persians broke and fled. The battlefield was won, and the gates to Iraq were open. The Muslim victory at al-Qādisiyyah was a testament to their faith, their strategy, and their unyielding spirit. But as the dust settled, a new challenge emerged. The Persians, though defeated, were not broken. Reports reached Sa'd of another Persian army gathering, determined to avenge their defeat. The struggle for Iraq was far from over. In the sweltering heat of Syria, with only 36,000 Muslim warriors facing an imperial Byzantine force of over 150,000, Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf stood at the precipice of history. The stakes could not be higher. Failure here would not only jeopardize the conquest of Syria, but also risk the very survival of the nascent Muslim state. The Byzantine Empire, with its vast resources and seasoned armies, was determined to reclaim its lost territories. The Muslims, though few in number, were driven by a faith that transcended mere mortal fear. Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and a seasoned commander, knew the gravity of the situation. The Byzantine forces, under the command of Emperor Heraclius, had regrouped after their defeat at Ajnidain and were now poised to strike back with overwhelming force. The Muslims, having secured Damascus and pushed northward, were now encamped near the Yarmouk River, a natural barrier that could either protect them or become a deadly trap. The terrain was treacherous. The Yarmouk River, swollen with the rains, cut through the land like a jagged scar. To the west lay the rugged hills of the Golan, and to the east, the flat plains of the Hauran stretched out, offering little cover. The Byzantines, with their superior numbers, could attack from multiple directions, enclosing the Muslim forces in a deadly pincer movement. Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, known for his strategic brilliance and unwavering faith, devised a plan that would test the mettle of his men. He understood that a direct confrontation with the Byzantines would be suicidal. Instead, he sought to neutralize their numerical advantage by choosing the battlefield carefully. He ordered his men to fortify their positions along the eastern bank of the Yarmouk River, using the natural terrain to their advantage. The Byzantine forces, confident in their numbers, were eager to engage. They believed that the Muslims, outnumbered and outgunned, would be easy prey. However, Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf had other plans. He divided his forces into 3 main divisions, each led by a trusted commander: Khalid ibn al-Walid, Amr ibn al-Az, and Yariyah ibn Abd Allah. Each division was strategically positioned to counter any Byzantine advance. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in his al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf knew that the key to victory lay in controlling the river crossings. The Byzantines, with their heavy cavalry, would struggle to maneuver across the river, giving the Muslims a crucial advantage. He ordered his men to dig trenches and erect barriers along the riverbank, creating a formidable defensive line. The Byzantines, led by the experienced General Vahan, launched their first assault on the northern flank. The Muslim defenders, under the command of Khalid ibn al-Walid, held firm. The battle raged for days, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. The Byzantines, despite their numbers, were unable to break through the Muslim lines. Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity. He ordered a feigned retreat, luring the Byzantines into a trap. As the Byzantine forces pursued the retreating Muslims, they found themselves trapped between the river and the Muslim lines. The Muslims, turning suddenly, launched a counterattack that caught the Byzantines off guard. The Byzantines, now disorganized and vulnerable, were cut down by the relentless Muslim assault. The battle turned into a rout, with the Byzantines fleeing in disarray. The Muslims, pursuing their enemies with relentless zeal, inflicted heavy casualties on the Byzantine forces. The Battle of Yarmouk, one of the most decisive in Islamic history, had been won. But the victory came at a cost. The Byzantines, though defeated, were not destroyed. Their emperor, Heraclius, still held significant power and resources. The Muslims, though victorious, were now faced with the daunting task of consolidating their gains and securing their new territories. As the dust settled on the battlefield, a letter arrived from Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. The contents of the letter would change the course of the war and test the resolve of the Muslim commanders. The letter, bearing the seal of the Caliph, contained orders that would challenge the very foundations of their victory. In the year 643 AD, as the Islamic State flourished under the stewardship of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, a shadow of conspiracy loomed over the heart of Medina. The city, a beacon of faith and unity, was about to face an unprecedented threat. The Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second rightly guided caliph, was the target of an assassination plot that could have altered the course of Islamic history. This perilous night would test the resolve of the Muslim community and the strategic brilliance of their leaders. The stakes were monumental. Umar ibn al-Khattab was not just a leader. He was a pillar of the Islamic State, a man known for his justice, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. His leadership had guided the Muslim Ummah through rapid expansion and internal consolidation. If he were to fall, the very foundations of the Islamic State could be shaken. The plot was hatched by a Jew named Abu Lala Firaz, a Persian slave who had been enslaved for his father's debts. Firaz had been wronged by Umar's strict enforcement of justice, which had led to the imprisonment of his daughter. Seeking revenge, Firaz planned to assassinate the Caliph during the early hours of the morning, when Umar would be at his most vulnerable. He crafted 2 poisoned daggers, one for Umar and another for the governor of Medina, Abdullah ibn Sahl. Firaz's plan was meticulous. He knew the routines of the Caliph and the governor, and he chose the time and place carefully. The courtyard of the mosque, where Umar often walked alone in the early hours, was to be the site of the assassination. Firaz had to ensure that his attack would be swift and deadly, leaving no room for error. As the night deepened, Firaz waited in the shadows, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. He had every intention of striking at dawn, when Umar would be most vulnerable. But little did he know that his actions would soon be exposed. The crisis came to a head when Firaz attempted to carry out his plan. According to Al-Tabari, Firaz approached Umar as he walked through the courtyard, his daggers hidden beneath his cloak. But fate intervened. A sudden noise alerted a nearby guard, who rushed to investigate. Firaz, realizing he had been spotted, panicked and struck out at the guard instead. The guard, waking the people of Medina with his cries, alerted the entire community. Umar, hearing the commotion, quickly realized the danger. He ordered the gates of the mosque to be locked, and the people of Medina were called to arms. Firaz, now cornered, was overwhelmed by the sheer number of armed Muslims who had gathered to protect their caliph. He was captured and brought before Umar, who, despite knowing the gravity of the threat, treated him with justice and fairness. Firaz confessed to his plot, revealing the extent of his hatred and the lengths to which he had gone to exact revenge. Umar, ever the just leader, ordered that Firaz be executed for his crimes. The resolution of the crisis was swift and decisive, but it left a lasting impression on the Muslim community. The attempt on Umar's life had exposed the fragility of their security and the need for constant vigilance. In the aftermath of the assassination attempt, Umar took steps to strengthen the defenses of Medina and ensure the safety of the Islamic State. He ordered the construction of a new mosque, the Masjid al-Nabawi, which would serve as a symbol of unity and a bastion of faith. He also appointed Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf as a trusted advisor, knowing that his wisdom and strategic insight would be crucial in the days ahead. But even as the immediate threat had been neutralized, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. The Byzantine Empire, still reeling from its defeat at the Battle of Yarmouk, was rallying its forces for a renewed assault on the Islamic State. The news of this impending threat reached Medina, casting a shadow over the celebrations of the foiled assassination attempt.